welcome back to another episode of Make Thrift Buy, the show where you send in accessories or clothing that you've seen on the internet and then I try and recreate it through a combination of crafting or thrifting or sometimes both. Today's challenge is this super cute fluffy purse clutch thing, suggested by Anonymous. Now I don't know why Anonymous didn't want to leave their name, but you did direct me straight to the German ASOS website, so I know that you're at least from Germany or speak German, detective skills. Also, ASOS is where the original purse can be found, but it seems to be perpetually out of stock. So I thought I would try and recreate it for myself. So let's begin. So, fluffy fabric, my old arch nemesis. I bought this fake fur fabric for new from Spotlight because I didn't want to chance another fluffy blue shorts incident by using some unknown thrifted material. But it does appear that any fluffy fabric just goes everywhere. Did you see that? Seriously? Oh, come on. Before I've even started, I've pulled off enough fluff to make a small animal. Anyway, once I got over that, I started actually thinking about the project. I decided that I wanted to make a clutch rather than a purse like the ASOS one. I also decided that I wanted both sides of the clutch to be furry, unlike the ASOS purse where one side is this leathery material. So, turning the fake fur over to the wrong side, I drew out two identical rectangles with the dimensions 12 inches by 10 inches. Then I cut them out. And check it out, my mum got me this rotary cutter for Christmas, which, oh my god, makes cutting things so much easier. Look at that. So easy. Of course, scissors will work just fine if you don't have a rotary cutter yourself. And there's my two rectangles that will make up the outer part of the clutch. Now for the inner lining. I also cut out two identical sized rectangles with some lining fabric. And these are the 4 pieces that I will need. The next thing that I did was to sew on some googly eyes. I found these googly eyes that have this plastic loop on the back so that I can hand sew them on instead of just gluing them on, which wouldn't be as durable. So on one piece of the outer fabric, I figure out where I want the eyes to go, and then I sew them on by hand, using a needle and a thread. To sew them on, I go up through the back of the fabric, through the loop at the back of the googly eye, and back down. And then up and down a couple more times to secure the eye in place. And then I tie a couple of knots in the back to make one big knot so that it's really secure, and then cut off the excess thread. Then I grabbed a zipper, and this zipper is thrifted. The most important thing about this zipper though is that it needs to be longer than the side of the clutch where you're inserting it. So my zipper needed to be longer than 12 inches. It's actually way longer than that, but that doesn't matter because I'll be cutting it shorter later on. Now to sew the clutch together. First I lay down the lining fabric, then the zipper, right side up, and then the fake fur, right side down. And I make sure that the top edges of all 3 are aligned. Then I pin the fabrics and the zip to hold them in place, and I'm going to sew across here. However, when I'm sewing, I'm going to flip it over so that the foot of the sewing machine will be gliding along the lining, rather than the rough underside of the fake fur. While sewing, I use a straight stitch and a zipper foot. A zipper foot isn't necessary in this step, but it will make life easier. Then, going really slowly so my sewing machine doesn't freak out, I sew all 3 layers together. When I'm done with that, I flip everything over so that the right side, the fluffy side, of the outer fabric is facing outwards. I also temporarily pin the lining to the outer fabric just to keep them out of the way in the next step. And the next step is to repeat the same thing again. I lay down the lining fabric, then the zipper with everything else attached to it, right side up, and the last fake fur piece right side down. I make sure they're all lined up at the top edge, and then I pin them together and sew across the top like this, but along the lining side again. And at this point, the clutch is looking like this. Then I half unzip the zipper, and then I fold the fabrics over so that the 2 lining pieces are on one side and the 2 fake fur pieces are on the other side, both right sides together. Then I pin the zipper so that it's folded towards the fake fur pieces, cut off the excess zipper pieces, and then I sew using a straight stitch around most of the outsides, like this. Make sure that you take extra care while sewing over the zipper. When I got up to the zip, I took my foot off the pedal and I used the hand wheel instead, to make sure that my needle wouldn't hit the zip and snap. Make sure you're leaving a gap in the lining fabric, you don't want to sew it totally closed at this point. When I'd done that, I pulled everything through the hole in the lining and then through the open zipper. I also pushed out the corners of the outer fabric, and then I pulled the lining out one last time so that I could sew the gap closed, like this. And that's it, you guys, I'm done. So, how did I go? So can you make this for yourself? Yes, you can. Now, obviously you don't have to make it as big and like clutch sized as I did. You can make it smaller and more purse sized like the one on ASOS. All you have to do is adjust your measurements according to how big you want it to be, just remembering to leave about an inch or so for seam allowance. And as worried as I was about the fluffy fabric going everywhere, once it's all sewed together and there's no raw edges, the fluff actually stays on the bag and it doesn't go everywhere, so that's a good thing. And it's super snuggly and nice and I really like it. I also discovered that if you turn it upside down and unzip it, it looks like it has a mouth, which is another great thing about it. As always, if you attempt to make this or you try out any of my other tutorials, then please tag me on Instagram with the hashtag DIYAnnika, because I really love seeing what you guys come up with. It makes me really happy. I hope you're all having a good day and I'll see you all for my next video. Bye!